Masculinity, the space where we challenge conventions and invite deeper, profound conversations around men's mental health, emotional resilience, and this evolving landscape of what it means to be a man today. I'm your host, Sana, and today's episode is one that is definitely close to my heart. We are diving into masculinity, initiation, and rites of passage, a conversation that will feel ancient yet urgently relevant in today's modern world. Joining me is someone who doesn't just study these rites, listeners, he lives them. And prepare to be to journey beyond the ordinary with Marko Petrovic. He's a visionary, world explorer, and two-time best-selling author of Soul Path, An Embrace of the Elements. Marco leads transformative, beautiful retreats to Earth's sacred sites, weaving ancient rituals into modern day life through his Mara project. And he's here today on Mind Over Masculinity to help us rediscover this lost art of initiation and maybe ignite some kind of passion within you or something within you, dear listeners. So let's quickly get into it. So, Marco, welcome to the show. And as always, it is such an honor to have you with us.
Thank you, Sana. Great to be back.
Okay. Um, so Marco, you have had a humble beginning. You have traveled to some of the most sacred corners of the world. You have studied initiation rites across cultures. So, in your view, what role do these rites play in shaping masculinity, and why do you think they have become so rare in modern society?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel largely like masculinity doesn't exist in the modern world. And what I mean when I say that is a lot of the practices, disciplines, rituals, rites of passage, initiations that we went through as men have been stripped away by modern day society, by the change of cultures. And uh, as a result of those cultures changing, the one thing that got left to the wayside was particularly for men, rites of passage and initiation. And for me, a rite of passage or an initiation for a man is what actually has a boy become a man. So in today's day and age, we have a lot of boys running around like men because they are of that age, but they're still very boyish in their tendencies.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree, and that really hits home. Um, so in your retreats and experiences, Marco,
Mhm.
how have you seen modern men respond when they're finally given like a structured rite of passage and initiation? Does it like awaken something primal within them or something even
Absolutely.
unexpected?
Yeah, it absolutely does awaken the primal within them. And I feel like that's largely what's not given a space to breathe in the modern day world. And primal, I guess different people have an association to that, but primal doesn't mean like aggressive or something like that, but it means alive. And it means in contact with that aspect of us that can be incredibly caring and incredibly dangerous when needed. So if I needed to defend my family from a threat,
Mhm.
that I could be dangerous and not have that part of myself suffocated. And it's about creating the kind of warrior who knows his tools, who knows how to use them and doesn't need to because he can live mindfully. So for me, it's about integrating these different parts of, or these different archetypes that are available to us. One being the warrior, another one being the poet, the king, right? And
Mhm.
rites of passage allow us to connect to them. As far as that primal aspect that we're speaking to, that's so important. Uh, the change that I see in men, like when they come out of a rite of passage or an initiation, even within myself, is that it's almost like rather than saying, like, we live in a world of check boxes, right? So if you go to university and you get the degree, now you're a doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas with rites of passage, it doesn't work like that. Just because you've been through an initiation, you're not now initiated and that's it, full stop. No, you've been through an initiation. But as long as you're alive, as long as you're uh, like living. You're gonna have
Mm.
different initiations that you'll have to go through to stay in that initiated state. The initiated state, that what I refer to when I say that is when I see men who are initiated in their being, they walk more like the hunter. They know what their target in life is. They know what their purpose is. If they are going to hunt and pull the trigger to kill an animal, they know what they're doing. They don't question themselves, right? They walk like the king of their own kingdom. They create their reality like that. Whereas the uninitiated are men who are a little too cuddled in by life. And what I mean by that is they'll display lots of insecurity, fear, and doubt. An initiated man doesn't express those because he sees them as the guideposts to clarity, right? So, same experience, different outcome, just because of the way that he adapts himself to it. And so, when I speak about this not just being a checkbox, it's that if I just go and I go through one rite of passage, that's just for that moment in time in life, right? At another point that down the track in life, I'm gonna have to go through another rite of passage to maintain my sharpness, to maintain my clarity, to maintain my precision, my impeccability, all these things that we speak about, because it's like the sword that doesn't get sharpened. Eventually, it goes blunt, right? And so every single man has a sword that he needs to sharpen, and the most important one that he can sharpen is that through rites of passage and initiation.
Hmm. Do you think it has something to do with the masculine energy? Because we often talk about the masculine and the feminine energy. So it is more about, rediscovering or reigniting that masculine energy within you.
I'd say it's about cultivating men, and what a man is to me is not someone that's purely masculine. It's a man that understands both aspects of masculine and feminine within himself.
Mhm.
Because I'll give you an example. If I was all masculine,
Uh-huh.
then I wouldn't have the capacity to feel myself. I wouldn't feel life. I wouldn't be connected to the poetry of life. I wouldn't experience life as beautiful. I'd experience it as metallic, as robotic, as you and me, and
Mhm.
space and difference. Whereas the feminine aspect of me says that, well, yeah, there are two different humans here that are speaking, but we do share connections. So we might resonate on a particular topic, or we might not resonate on a particular topic. And my capacity to feel allows me to relate to you better. If I was blind to the way that we were vibrating in this conversation, then I might just forcefully keep promoting my book and not care about you or the listeners. But it's the aspect of the feminine within me that says, like, no, I'm here for service. And
Mhm.
service says, let me deliver the message of what we're here to speak about. Right.
Right.
And so it's,
Absolutely.
for me, it's about integrating both of those and not letting go of this illusion that men are only masculine and that women are only feminine. But we both have both of those energies that express themselves inside of us. We came from a man and a woman, right? So
Mhm.
those two energies had to come together for us to receive life. So by the nature of life, they're a part of us. And we can't shut ourselves, well, we can try to shut ourselves off from it, but it doesn't lead down a good road. And for me, I want people to be led down a good road. And the good road says, I came from both of these aspects, from both of these energies. So I have to know how to relate to both of them.
Absolutely. I think this thought process it is so valid in the current context. Whether we talk about masculinity or feminism or anything like that, I think this is so valid in both the aspects. That yes, we come from both a man and a woman, and we do have that blend of these energies within us. Um, that is beautifully put, Marco. Beautifully put. Okay, now let's talk about your personal journey. So. um you have had such huge transformation in your journey. You sold your farm and you kind of rediscovered yourself. You visited all the sacred um places on earth. You connected with the ancestral energy. So all through these years, I know it's a bit, difficult question, but all through these years, how have your definition of being a man, or, we kind of say just man up, or masculinity has changed
Mhm.
through the years?
How has it changed over the years?
Yeah.
I'd say if I was to give you a metaphor, it would be by dropping my armor and standing tall,
Mm.
standing erect. And what I mean by that is the armor that I speak about is like it's like the warrior who prepares himself for battle,
Mhm.
knowing he's going to get beaten up, and so he puts on extra layers to protect himself. And that to me isn't a warrior. A warrior is the one that says, "I'll give my life for this, and I'll go fight with my bare hands if I have to."
Mhm.
And so it was about that difference for me. And when I say standing tall, I mean about being erect in one's spine and being able to look straight on, being able to have my shoulders dropped, not tense, and being able to have my heart open and being able to experience this channel of life that moves from the crown of my head through the third eye, through my nose, my lips, my throat, my heart, all the way down through my center and into the earth. And when I can experience myself standing like that, then I know I'm standing as a man. If I'm slouching when I'm sitting, if I'm carrying like aches and pains and feel like my shoulders are burdened with tension, I'm
Mhm.
carrying some kind of armor, trying to protect myself from something. But if I'm a man, then I know that I don't really need to protect myself from anything because I have the capacity to take care of myself. So I'm speaking to like some subtle differences here, but they're also very clear differences that we can experience.
Yeah.
And so for me, this journey of being a man has been more and more about how do I take off the armor that I'm wearing, and the armor is also pretending to be someone that I'm not. The armor is, um, I mean, I'll give you a common one in the world of business for men,
Mhm.
not being honest about where they're at.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
Sometimes in English they call them white lies, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll dress myself up a little bit. I'll make myself look a little bit better so that I can impress other people around me. A real man doesn't need to do that because he's aware of the value that he carries within himself, and he's able to be truthful and respectful. And so for me, it's about like these uh, qualities that are very basic that people even refer to as old school. But for me, it's not old school. It's just common sense.
Mhm.
The best way I can relate to life is by letting go of all the armor, all the masks, all the illusions, and being real with myself. And that can be challenging, because that conversation right there, as a man, starts by a very honest look in the mirror and
Mhm.
asking myself, well, I think of myself as being this great person, but do I actually take care of myself? Do I take care of my health? Do I work out? Do I stretch? Do I eat good food? Do I drink water? Do I hydrate? Do I think well about other people? And taking a look at every area of life. Do I use my money wisely to improve the quality of life that I and my family get to experience? Or do I waste it on desire that doesn't last anything but a few seconds?
Mm.
Right? And starting to have these really honest conversations with oneself. And it's just that conversation in the mirror that no one else needs to hear but myself. But when I when I had that conversation, that's when my life started to change, you know. And then I was able to bring that same clarity to other people. So nowadays, when people speak to me, many times they do the feedback that like they feel really clear after a conversation with me. And it's not because I'm anything special, but it is because I was willing to look at myself and be really honest about how I'm living my life and making the changes that I needed to make.
Mm. Wow, that's quite deep, quite deep. Oh my God. And then you also speak about sacred masculinity, which I don't know, but to some it might sound like an outdated or even a controversial term. But how do you define sacred masculinity, and how can men reclaim a version of masculinity that feels both strong and compassionate? I mean, of course, you gave us, uh, you know, quite a hint as you answered the previous question, but I would, we all would love to know uh, much more about this.
Yeah, it's a great question. Sacred masculinity to me, it's expressed through archetypes beautifully, right? So we can look at some, like some characters from well-known movies, for example. You think about Aragorn or Legolas from Lord of the Rings. You think about the main character in Gladiator, right?
Mhm.
They're all strong characters. They're like any man that's watched the movie would love to be one of those characters, right? And why?
Yeah.
Well, because they're dangerous. They know how to use their weapons. They know what they stand for. They're willing to stand against the odds.
Hmm.
And all of that is based on their devotion. So when you look at I don't remember the words inscribed uh, in the second Gladiator from the first one, but he left some beautiful words that referred to one's devotion. When you look at Aragorn, it's his devotion to the oath that he made to protect the ring. It's his devotion to protect people, to protect his kingdom, even his kingdom where he had been outcast by others. So even though he was portrayed as an enemy for the first two movies, it wasn't until the Return of the King, right, the third one, where he came back and he claimed the crown that was rightfully his. And so sacred
Mhm.
masculinity to me is that aspect, that connection to the intangible, the the aspects of life that aren't material, but aren't physical. Because anyone can build themselves up to be strong, right? You go to the gym, you eat certain kinds of food, you build up a physical structure. You can learn how to use your voice in a way that dominates other people, and you can be strong. But all of that without a connection to one's devotion is just
Mhm.
adding more layers of armor. Whereas when this is the piece of the intangible, right? It's a fine line, but it's a very different outcome. And the fine line is, where's one's devotion at? What's the undercurrent of energy that I'm building this from? And so the undercurrent of energy is my intention. Am I in contact with my intention, or am I just doing things because I think it'll look cool on Instagram? I think people will like me. I think I'll get approval from certain people and all these things.
Mm.
And I'll give one other example that I feel is really valuable on just what I mentioned there
Yeah.
around doing things to gain the approval of others. I heard these beautiful words that said, most of us live a life reacting to the illusions that we have
Mhm.
about the illusions that other people have of us. So what does that mean? It means I'm talking to you right now, Sana, and my mind will think that you think about me in a certain way. So let me
Mhm.
respond to the way that I think that you think about me, none of which is real,
Exactly. Yep.
right? And people carry these burdens for a long time. Whereas a man, an initiated man, a man initiated into sacred masculinity, and truthfully, for me, all masculinity is sacred if it's done right. And being
Mhm.
done right is about this aspect of intentionality. And for me, the real man, he says, this is my life, this is my path of inspiration, and this is what I'm going to do. Right. And being honest, upfront, and truthful about it, and having integrity behind it. And what's integrity? Well, when my thoughts, my words, and my actions align, when those three pieces come together.
Mhm. And where exactly vulnerability ties up into here, Marco, because um, one thing I have noticed is that many men, they resist this idea of, or they equate vulnerability with weakness in these initiations.
Mhm,
So what's your opinion on this, and um, how do you guide them past that wall, especially when their conditioning tells them to just man up or stay
mhm,
stoic? Yeah, sometimes are situations compel the men to be stoic, because your family members or maybe your loved ones, they're kind of looking up to you. But
mhm.
in case you break down, then that kind of it would not help in that particular situation. But then just at a general level, if you would have to say anything on this.
Yeah, I'd say that, I mean, there's a few threads of dialogue that you mentioned there that are valuable to deepen.
Mhm.
And because sometimes we use words that uh, people may carry an association to or may not. For me, vulnerability isn't breaking down. Vulnerability for me is about being in connection to the fragility of life.
Mhm.
So life is fragile. It's a very fragile thing. When we're born, we're naked, we cry, right? When the baby's born, and we're very fragile.
Mhm.
And that essence of life lives inside of us all along. So we might mature as time goes on, but that fragile aspect is always inside of us. There's always, like people speak about inner child's work, right? So that's
Mhm.
always there. And that's always real. But uh, breaking down is not mutually dependent on vulnerability. So I can be vulnerable without breaking down. And what I mean by that is like I am a rather stoic person. Like oftentimes people say to me that I have a poker face and that they can't read me and things like this. And that I am also very deeply connected to my vulnerability.
Mhm.
And that vulnerability for me is feeling life.
Mhm.
That means if I have an emotion, I feel it. I don't block it. But stoicism for me is actually beautiful in masculinity when done right, because stoicism allows me to feel,
Mhm.
to not react, but to respond.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
Uh, an example is a man who gets so angry, he's furious, he's enraged.
Mhm.
The uninitiated man will go punch a wall. The uninitiated man will carry that rage and go abuse people on the road while in traffic.
Yeah.
The uninitiated man will look for some kind of violence because he doesn't know what to do with the energy. Now, here's the thing, that could be seen metaphorically as a storm, right?
Mhm.
When someone's in that rageful experience, they're in a storm. But who decides whether I am the eye of the storm or whether I am the storm itself? I do. No one decides for me. So if I'm the eye of the storm, what does that mean? It means that same energy that can punch through a wall, I can
Mhm.
use to punch through into the next layer of my life.
Mhm.
That same energy I can use to write songs. I read some songs about 7 or 8 years ago now. And during the time when I was writing an album, I wrote 8 songs. 4 of them were written thanks to someone who was very furious and ended up abusing me with their words and calling me all kinds of things and everything. And it had nothing to do with me. And had I been uninitiated, I would have started a fight
Yeah.
because I would have gotten offended and then we would have ended up beating each other up. Fortunately, I'd spent enough time around wise examples of men that allowed me to stay stoic, to not react, and take all that energy home with me. And then I sat down and I wrote 4 beautiful songs with it. And what has that expression of rage done as a result? Well, I have a lot of people that many times speak to me about how they have beautiful memories with some of those songs. Whereas had I taken the first option of just fighting, we both would have ended up with bruises. And that's it.
Yeah.
As for the other piece of like showing emotion, which I feel is what you were speaking to in the undercurrent of your question,
Mhm.
I mean, look, there's like a battle of cultures, right? Like typically the culture that men are raised in is to not show emotion, and
Oh,
uh, every man has to decide for himself how he's going to do that. Showing emotion is beautiful and done in a space where one feels safe, secure, taken care of, and protected. And for some men, that may not be around their family. And I know a lot of women and a lot of family members would love to just see, a man in their life who's a very strong man that does a lot for the family, just let out some tears. But perhaps the safest place for him to do that in some instances is by himself, is in nature.
mm,
And for me, what I speak to there is not meeting the expectations of others because they think it's nice. It's meeting the current of life where it wants to be met. So if a man wanted to cry, that he didn't feel comfortable around family, and his family was like, "It's fine, you can cry." Like imagine, like if for a man, like someone near and dear passed away, right? And instead of crying, he held it in. But what if we don't even have the awareness that he's giving himself space outside of the family unit to let his tears out? And so, what I mean by that is to allow the expression of nature. Like our emotions are a part of nature, and so it's important that they get expressed. The
yes.
question in it of me steering my own life is how they get expressed, right? And sometimes it's not practical to allow myself to cry. Sometimes it's not practical to not allow myself to cry. Both are valid. It depends on context, right?
That's-
Sometimes it's valid for me to punch someone in the face. Like if they put my family in danger, that would be a valid thing. Fortunately, I've never had to. And sometimes it's valid not to punch someone in the face just because I'm angry. Again, it depends on context, right? But I do feel definitely that there's space for men to allow themselves for the expression of emotion, to feel life a lot deeper, and to be in contact with vulnerability in the way that we've spoken about it here, so that they can experience the fullness of life. That's what it comes down to.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Ah, great, great. And then, Marco, before we wrap up, what kind of ripple effects do you believe we would see in our communities or families globally if more men they are engaged in meaningful rites of passage today?
I'd say we'd see less violence, and I speak about all forms of physical violence,
Mhm.
abuse, fighting, all that kind of stuff towards other men, towards women as well, towards families. There'd be a greater degree of care. There'd be a greater sense of the human family and like that we're all in this journey together under the one sun and under the one sky, no matter where we live and which culture we're from. I feel it will allow us to do away with many of the differences that actually create friction in the way that we relate to each other.
Well,
And what's the ripple effect of that? Well, we'd have a society that thrives a lot better, right? And we'd have more men doing uh, work that helps society construct itself in a way. I'm not just talking about physical construction. I'm talking about the internal construction as well. I know for myself that I didn't have too many male models of men that are initiated growing up. I had a few. I was fortunate, but there wasn't too many. When I look across the board, the majority of the men that I was surrounded by were uninitiated. Now that might just be a nature of the culture that I was raised in, being Australia. Um, There's definitely certain countries and certain cultures that have more initiated men, but generally speaking, across the board, uh, I'd say that there's opportunity for a lot more men to be initiated and to keep uh, forging themselves against the flame of initiation. So to keep meeting the fire when it wants to be met, to keep showing up, because that difference between a boy and a man, like we spoke about earlier, it's a sliding scale. And if I don't go back to the fire and keep showing up for life's initiations, then I'm going to become a boy that looks like a man. Whereas if I keep showing up, then I'm going to be a man that completely fills out my being, my skin, my body, and I'm there fully with life. And that's what we need at the end of the day. Every family, every daughter, every mother, every child wants their man to be present. I think that's what it comes down to.
That is so right. That is so right. And it's kind of uh, poetic in a way. So, Marco, thank you so much. I mean, this conversation has been such a, a humbling and grounding reminder that masculinity isn't something to be boxed or maybe stripped away. It is definitely something to be, initiated and celebrated in all its sacredness. So, thank you for sharing your insights, your experiences, and giving us, something to definitely think about. Whether we are a man or a woman or anyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you for the conversation. It's been a great one, and I love the fact that you're allowing conversations like this on the podcast. It's a really valuable topic of conversation that I'm very passionate about.
Thank you, Marco, for your kind words. I hope so that listeners, Marco's wisdom and energy will have you questioning and feeling and remembering that masculinity is a journey. It is not a destination. So, with that, if you want to connect with Marco, just refer to the show notes along with this episode. And also check out his books, Soul Path and Embrace of the Elements. And also connect with him on Instagram for checking out his Mara project for retreats that could change your life. So, with that, this is your host, Sana, signing off from Mind Over Masculinity. Thank you.